one of the most beautiful things in life, nourishing, wealthy, is a company of wise people. And I really wanted to share this with more people. So hence, so much gratitude expressing to your time here, to take your time and spend a few moments with us and share some of your wisdom. So for those who don't know Simon, you probably live on a Mercury planet or somewhere else. So I believe Simon is one of the biggest teachers of our time, and one of the most successful in modern yoga. So it's a privilege to be here with you. And we just finished incredible practice. Feel open, expanded. So wonderful to continue on a high. Simon, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. And first, your message coming across around a globe, and this is about breathe less, stretch less, tense less. All of this is not very popular nowadays, and this is what actually resonated with me. And at some point in my life, I was a director of the company that we built for a long time, and we pushed very hard to make it happen, and yoga helped us. It was in the core of our morning routine. It was an eco-community. We were developing something, but at some point I find that still I couldn't really get rid of the criticism in my mind. There's all this heated emotions sometimes would just raise, and I would continue spinning the conversation in my mind, and I was trying to find what's going on, where the legs are coming from. So I went to this deep retreat that I couldn't sit straight for 2 days. And for 3 days I'm meditating, but I can't sit straight, thinking of the improvements and stuff. And then I realized, start studying, that some of the biggest teachers in our world, they were teaching according to people constitution. And I started looking into the deeper where's the yoga come from, how did it come from. So there's a strong connection with the Ayurveda as well. And when I started looking, I understood myself better. Yes, there is plenty of fire there already. And I realized my yoga practice is built around strong kriyas, powerful workout, strong breaths to get really high on oxygen, you could say. So since then, I adjusted my practice to just cool down that fire, and things start flourishing. There's more friendliness in my life, there's more love, there's more people in my community where I am. So when I heard you spreading this knowledge, this is strongly resonated. How did you find this? For me, it was the painful way to find this. I don't know, hopefully you were on an easier ride.
Dmitry, thank you very much for coming to chat with me. It's been a pleasure having you in our course all week. Your comment I resonate with totally, because I've been at this thing of working with postures, movement, breathing, mental control, meditation for pretty close to 60 years now. But for the first 30 years, I think I was doing what you were saying. I was overdoing it. I was very fiery, and it was fun. But I think what I was doing without realizing was generating what felt like fun inside the body by working so hard that I stimulated a flight or fight response, which generates this secretion of hormones inside your body like adrenaline, cortisol, endorphins, which really are like coffee, cocaine, and heroin. So you feel good, it feels exciting, but actually long term, this depletes your system. And as I got into my late 30s and early 40s, I noted that I wasn't getting any younger, that I wasn't improving anymore. I was actually getting worse. And I really had to think about it. And through my medical studies, also as a movement-based physiotherapist, I started to realize that what I was doing the way I was practicing was giving only short-term benefits on a musculoskeletal level. Certainly I got strong and flexible in my 20s and 30s, but long-term I was damaging my joints and not really nourishing my internal organs, the organs of longevity, immune, digestive, reproductive system, which can heal if you have it, help you heal if you've got injuries or damage. And it also revitalizes you and regenerates your system. And I realized that unless you can generate healthy blood flow inside your body while being relaxed, you haven't got the optimum conditions needed for longevity. For longevity, you need all your organs of regeneration, including immune, digestive, and reproductive functions. But to get those optimally working, you need to be in a state of parasympathetic dominance, which is that state of rest, rejuvenation, relaxation, which most people only get to that deep relaxed state when they're asleep. But for the organs of regeneration to work properly, you need to be moving blood. Otherwise, the energy and the information of your regenerative organs doesn't travel. But for most people, when they're really moving their blood, it's when they're exercising. But when most people exercising, they cause stress in their body with heart racing or breathing too much or stretching or tensing. All of these might feel good at the time, but they actually inhibit the parasympathetic nervous system, inhibit healthy blood flow. So what I realized I needed to do was to get the benefits of exercise and the benefits of sleep at the same time. And then I realized that that's what my Indian teachers of yoga were telling me. That's what my Chinese teachers of Qigong were telling me. That's what my Zen teachers of Japan were telling me. That's what the indigenous cultures of Australia, where I live, were telling me. And I started to recognize there was a common origin in all the ancient teachings from the great masters that I was lucky enough to learn with. And this resonated with my understanding as a movement-based physiotherapist, and also with my understanding in terms of medical science, that the common origin of all of it was that people were trying to connect with the practices. And connection inside your body happens the same way with connection with a person. If you want to connect with someone, you share your good energy and your love. So I realized I had to more share good energy and love inside myself. And for that, I think about the good energy as being healthy blood flow, the loving information being that dominance of the parasympathetic nervous system. And when both are working at the same time, and you're doing even a little bit of movement of each joint, that led to optimum health. I started to recover from my injuries, my internal organs started to feel better, my energy levels picked up. But to do it, I had to stop blocking good energy and loving information. And for those things, that's where I started saying to people, tense less, stretch less, breathe less, think less, eat less. Because although there's some benefits of those things, they were inhibiting blood flow, causing stress. But I always, it sounds funny when I say it to people, so I have to say, I can show you ways where with good practices from the traditional cultures around the world, with an understanding of modern medical science, and adapting these practices for the modern, messed up Western body, as opposed to the traditional body, then you can actually get flexible without stretching. You can get strong without feeling tense. You can get blood flow without the heart racing. You can become intelligent in your cells without having to think so much. And you can get energy without needing to breathe so much. And so it took a while to get this message across, but now I'm much better at explaining it and understanding it. But the most important person I had to convince was myself, because I was a bit like you. I was hardcore. I want to work hard. I want to work hard. And I was jokingly saying to you and the others before that often people work hard with the mentality of no pain, no gain, survival of the fittest. If you're good, you're going to go to heaven. If you're bad, you're going to go to hell. There's no free lunch. These things will give temporary benefits if you work like this, but long term they cause struggle and pain. And some people just work too hard, competing with those around them. I mean, we were taught since childhood to compete against our fellow kindergarten student to get a better life. And some people don't compete against others, they compete against themselves, trying to better themselves. And my philosophy is, if you are still competing, even if it's you against you, one of you is going to lose and it's going to be you. So now I don't compete. I just practice in a way which makes me feel good while I'm doing it. Still I'm moving every joint, still I'm moving blood, but I'm staying relaxed. And I find that the development of strength and flexibility is still possible. It's a bit slower, but it's more for the whole body. I'm working not just on the physical, but also the physiological and the mental at the same time. It was a bit of a long process. I'm no master, I'm still developing it, but I'm on a track now which I'm happier about.
Easy to understand, but not easy to accept. I try to learn from nature, and when I learn from trees, from forest, there is no competition there. There is place for everyone in a forest. It's adjust to give enough light. If there's a drought, it distributes the moisture to the places the farthest away. So that system, I think, we can really bring to our economy, to bring our lives. This is, Ayurveda said long time, 3,000 years, the Sushruta Samhita, and it says the Artha Shakti Vyayam, which is practice 50% of your capacity. I would never take it. You know it, you agreed, but there's still some kind of conditioning that we need to push to get that result. Yeah, I feel it's also about more of a letting go rather than climb to enlightenment, right? It's more of a slide. It's like a letting go. Then, is there any methodology you saw in your teachers? Oh, one of the most important thing that shifted my understanding is when I start looking how the teachers were teaching, not necessarily what they were teaching. I studied the Buddha teaching, how he was adjusting, saying certain things to bhikkhus, the monks, other things to the lay people, and Patanjali also supposedly being an Ayurvedic doctor. How would the Ayurvedic doctor teach? He would only teach according to your dosha, right? According to who you are. And that actually brought more of a realization for me than anything else, I have to say. And we set up the company, Sadhama, through nature. Like I said, do it for your nature. And I think you are very important because you had such incredible teachers in your life. So we want more people like you who continue spreading that message wide, and but also carrying the tradition of those incredible teachers. So I'd like to hear if you analyze how were they teaching, the Iyengar, the Patabi Joys, all those your other teachers in India and China. Was there anything common behind their teaching?
I love what you've said, and I'll reflect on it. One of the first things, I really appreciate that quote you gave from the ancient texts about practice should be 50% of your maximum. And this is what I'm trying to really get across to my students, that once you practice at 100%, you're often invoking stress in the body. But if you practice only 50%, it can be less. You can do it much more sustainably. And so when they talk in the sutras of Patanjali about asana, which literally means seat, but also comfortable position, we could say comfortable physical activity, then they say keep doing this activity in a way where it's firm but calm, sthira sukham asanam, but then keep it going until it feels effortless. And then all dualities shall cease. And so that idea means, for me, that we should practice at a level which the athlete might call in the zone or in the flow state, a practice which is sustainable. You could do it for hours. And usually anything more than 50%, you'll start wearing out, you'll start to feel exhausting. So I really resonate with that, don't practice with your maximum. Not that it's wrong to do it. And I think one of the other things we discussed earlier was that sometimes it's good to be on your edge. Go hard, test your edges. To me, this is Tantra. Find the extreme left, the extreme right. Then you know the middle path of the Buddha. But keep that exploring the edges or going to 100% to a small part of your practice. So I'll usually say to my students, for 90 to 99% of most of your practices, be gentle, be kind, be loving. And this is how we connect with people, by being gentle and kind and loving. And so if you can do that in ourselves, it's a model for how we are in the world. And then you were talking about the teachers, how did they teach? And some of those teachers you mentioned, like Iyengar, like Pattabhi Jois, you know, some Western practitioners said these people are very aggressive, you know, like many people think that Mr. Iyengar was an angry man. Some people even think his name is Mr. I Anger, but it's not anger. It's, people would say to him, why do you come across so intense? He said, because I'm just so passionate about making sure people get it. And he's a very passionate man, but he was really a loving man. And I think we often misunderstood. In the West, when a person raises their voice and says, do this, many Western-minded people think that person's really strict, they're being really scary, let's do what they say or die. But actually, when I saw the way the Indian students would respond to Guruji, Mr. Iyengar we would call Guruji, and when he'd yell and scream, the Westerners would freak out. Oh my God, he's angry at us. The local Indian people would go, oh, Guruji, you know, because they knew the Guru is like the Father. You trust the Father, you trust the Guru, and you know that the Father loves you. The Guru loves you, so no matter how strict they are, you know you're doing it because you want your students, your children, to get better. So I always felt the love from Mr. Iyengar. I also felt love from Pattabhi Jois. I felt love from also Desikacharya, who was the son of Krishnamacharya. I never met Krishnamacharya, but Desikacharya, his son, was beautiful. So all those three teachers, Desikacharya, Iyengar, Pattabhi Jois, I had the privilege of spending a lot of time with, you know, including wonderful dinners with Desikacharya, just with, you know, 5 or 6 people at a dinner table. And what they all resonated was this thing of love. In fact, one time Desikacharya said to myself and a group of 20 people, what is the purpose of yoga? And he looked me straight in the eye, what is the purpose of yoga? And I was stumped a little bit. I said, well, to recognize that our individual consciousness is one with the universal consciousness, which I thought was a good answer. He goes, no. And everyone he looked at, they gave answers. He said, no, no, no. And eventually he said, yoga is the interaction, the liaison, the communication between guru and shishya. The most important thing about yoga is the communication between teacher and student. And when I realized that, I went, hold on, well, who is our teachers then? Because we learn not just from the guru, but we learn from our friends. We learn from our family. We learn from our parents, our school teachers. I learn from my children. I learn from every student. And in fact, the most important guru is your higher self. So this idea of recognizing that it's the communication between who you're learning from and what you're receiving, that's the most important thing. And the only communication that really impacts you really strongly in a positive way is loving communication. It's hard to listen to someone who's yelling at you and being mean to you, but you're more able to receive knowledge that comes from someone who cares. And I really felt that love from all my teachers. It was a passion that sometimes came across like a strict parent, but they were all very beautiful teachers. You know, and sometimes Mr. Iyengar would yell and scream and everyone's strict, and he'd turn to look at me and he'd wink. And he'd laugh, you know, and there'd be a little childlike whimper. That love was important. Mr. Iyengar sometimes in his book, the Tree of Yoga, he said that tapas, which many people think is suffering, he called it a passionate desire to do your best. And passion to me is like love. So that passionate desire for a teacher to share what they're passionate about, that's when I learned most from my teachers. But then if I look at how those teachers taught me, Iyengar taught a lot with alignment-based instructions and technical detail. And for me, that resonated a lot with my science head. For Pattabhi Jois, he talked a lot about 99% practice, 1% theory. And that keep doing it till you learn it, that resonated a lot with my physical body. Desikachar was much more about philosophy, and he really resonated with communicating with individuals and sharing his love in a very easy to access way. He was very easy to get close to. My Chinese teachers often had the worst English, so they could only translate their knowledge and give it to me with visual instructions. And then I could really see something that I wasn't always able to recognize from my Indian teachers. I clicked when I spent time in China that the Chinese teachers were always talking about moving from your dantian. And the dantian is the core of your body. And the core of your body in India is not well known about. They talk about the core as being the khanda. It's an unknown word for most Westerners. The khanda is between the Manipura and the Swadhisthana chakra. They say the khanda is the origin of 72,000 nadis, or subtle channels. Then I remembered my first teachers I had who taught me how to teach movement were Japanese teachers. Japanese policeman and a beautiful shiatsu practitioner and a Japanese Zen monk. And they always talked about the hara and moving from your hara. And the center of the hara is the tanden. Then I started to realize that every traditional culture was trying to get you to move from your core. And I realized that that resonated with my understanding as a movement-based physiotherapist. They always talk about moving from the core, not locking the core. And then I realized that in medical science, they talk about the importance of connecting the thinking brain with your gut brain, which is the enteric nervous system. And a central principle of my teaching now is to understand the importance of connecting thinking brain in the head with the gut brain at your core. And that resonates with the idea of the dantian in China, the hara in Japan. There's even a name for it in Tibetan work. My first traditional teacher was a Tibetan Lama when I was 17. And then this idea in India that we're working with the khanda. And the most common expression of how to work from your core in India is the understanding that the first stage of Hatha Yoga is Kriya. And Kriya talks about things like Kapalabhati, which is a horizontal movement of the core, or Nauli Kriya, which is a more vertical movement. And really Kriya is about understanding how to move the core at one level and how to connect with your peripheral nervous system and at another level. So that really made an impact when I started to see it in the teachers like my Chinese teachers who couldn't speak much English, but they could demonstrate what core movement is. So every teacher has taught me in a different way, and I've learned that different part of me resonated with different teaching styles. And then I realized that if I'm going to teach other people, I have to recognize that some people are more visual learners, some people are more verbal learners, some people need more technical, some people need less. And I'm not an expert in anything, but all of those things resonated with me. And I find now, sometimes I'm better off with some students if I don't speak, if I show. Other students have to know the reasons why they're doing something. Other students don't. And I've been really lucky that I've had such varied teachers who all taught me in different ways. But all those teachers taught me with love, and that's a central principle.
Beautiful. You'll probably be interested as well that the hara is also present in the Russian language.
Yes.
And hara is the origin of the word znachar. Znachar means doctor.
Oh.
The doctor used to be perceived the one who could adjust that internal, when you exercise or you engage your abdominal and you put your fingers in your belly button, you feel the pulse.
Yes, you feel the aortic pulse.
Yeah, so that pulse should be centered, and so those znachars is the one who knows hara, and that was the principle of teaching, of healing basically. So this is seems to be quite a spread of the cultures using that principle. Fantastic, thank you for sharing this. Well, it's all good. We shouting on the Ayurveda, exercise 50% of your time, but also, do we really need as humans to achieve like wealth, to really let go of desire to be wealthy? Or do we first need to achieve this, flexibility to do splits? Well, you did it as well, right? Yeah. I did it as well, and then I realized this is drop. It's like a journey and destination. Journey and destination, there's few more. So there's journey, there's destination. Then we realize what you teach is, what is your destination? How comfortable are you in this destination? Farther down, what is the aim, right? There's like a few levels. Do we really need to, is it only for this level of people who gone through? You have to experience bottom to push yourself up sometimes, right? It's like the same as ecologically, or some countries in war now, right? They need to get into the bottom to really realize that they should stop this kind of stuff.
Well, firstly, I really love what you said about the Russian connection with the Hara. That's really amazing to me, and I love knowing that. And maybe you also know that there's a really beautiful book written in 1921 by a guy called Tilak, and it's called The Arctic Home of the Vedas, suggesting that actually the Russian people, whoever was living there at the time, were the origin of maybe some of the Vedas, very interesting stuff. Then with respect to what you're saying next about this, do we need to actually go to the ends of the realms of things to get the message? Some people, yes. Smart people, no. I think it's better to learn from other people's mistakes. But for me, I wasn't that smart. I had to make my own mistakes and then learn from them. I'm trying to teach my students to learn from my mistakes. That learning the splits didn't make me a better person. It just possibly risked my hips. Learning Scorpion didn't give me enlightenment. It probably just compressed my lower back. So all of the postures, although they're fun tricks to do, they don't really give you anything. And many people say to me, I can't wait till I get flexible so I can do yoga. And I go, you don't need flexible to do yoga. You don't need anything. You just have to understand the principle. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talked about, don't be attached to the fruits of your actions, be rather engaged in those actions themselves. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And that's a philosophy which comes out in modern culture as well. But many people still want the destination. We're still striving to get flexible, get strong. Whereas actually what brings you to this level is more important. The movement toward that. And really at the base of that, you have to ask, what was the aim of the journey? Because a journey can take you somewhere and you can take little steps in that direction. But if your aim is going to take you where you don't want to go, it's good to know. For example, many people might be working in a way, slowly progressing to get more flexible, more stretchy, but without realizing the way they are doing that may be adversely affecting their joints or their internal organ system in a negative way. So they might actually get what they think they're aiming for, which is strength and flexibility, without realizing that another aspect of their life might be compromised, such as longevity, ongoing health, happiness, and longevity. So then I go, hold on, maybe I should redefine my aim. My aim is not to get flexible. My aim is to have a long, healthy, happy life. And if then you have a better aim, then you look for a destination in a different direction. You don't necessarily trying to achieve the destination, but you're moving in that direction. So I think it's better to not look straight for the destination, but rather to aim in the right direction and start moving slowly in that way. So journey is more important than destination. I'm not looking at trying to get flexible. I'm trying to achieve freedom in my body. And I found that when I stretch, as soon as you come to the end of your range, already you've lost freedom. If you go from one extreme to the next, you've found the boundaries of your cage. A mouse that you put in a small cage will run around, hit the wall. They'll feel trapped. But if you give a mouse a really big cage, it will never touch the borders of the cage, and it feels freer. So I learned that in my own body, if I move without stretch, I feel free. But as soon as I hit the edges of my range of motion, that's when I start to feel restriction. So I'm not looking for stretch, I'm looking for freedom. But you can have that at any level. You know, someone who's stiff can still move their shoulders freely. And by moving freely, not only does it give mental freedom, it starts to pump blood, nourish the joints. So I started to realize then that the aim of the practice shouldn't be flexibility. It's rather to have freedom. And when you move in a free way, you start to establish blood flow while being relaxed, which gives you energy while relaxation happens and promotes immune, digestive, reproductive function. I started to realize after a while that I didn't need to stretch. I didn't need to get super strong. I just have to understand the principles. And then I got a better result. Now, I would love it if I could teach that to my students and say, you don't have to tear your hamstrings. You don't have to squash your lower back. I did. And then I realized, but it was too late. So now at 66, my body is okay. But I think if I didn't stretch so much and tense so much and move so radically, I'd probably look healthier, like some of my older teachers who worked a bit gentler. So maybe you have to learn the hard way. Maybe anyone listening to this might be a person who has to learn from other people's mistakes. But I reckon if you're smart, learn from other people's mistakes. Don't repeat the mistakes. But some people need to actually struggle and find them themselves.
Yeah, it's like there are different types of courses, isn't it? Some just need to be told, some others need to be hit, and others just need to be continuously hit. Yeah, the same with the types of people, I guess. There is interesting thing about this aim, and in Dhamma, in Buddhist Dhamma as well, in Vipassana retreats, Vipassana meditation, there are certain insights, and that's what basically leads your understanding. Is liberation by wisdom. Is understanding something that actually brings that liberation, brings that higher knowledge that can release things. And one of them is disenchantment and dispassion that leads to when you saw certain things for yourself, like that aim, for example, like let's say they aim for people to go to America, for example, right? Some journeying there, swimming. Some you say in your approach, well, you better don't struggle. Maybe take a train or not to take a plane. Yes. Yeah, there is an easier journey to get there. People who've been there many times say, well, it's all right, but kind of there's nothing to do there really. I'm happy where I am now. So there's that disenchantment and that embedded into that progression of us as humans to understand things, where we release of the attachment of certain things. Do you feel this sometimes with this approach? Because there's either passion to do really to get it, yes, the anger, or you saw it and you know, well, I can't let go.
It's an interesting reflection, and I think that many wise people have said there's nothing to do, just be. Stop doing, start being. Stop be a human doing and start become a human being. You know, stop trying to learn yoga and start doing yoga. This makes sense to me. And often the over-trying to overachieve, to reach for a future goal, can make us forget that actually here and now is the only reality we have. There is no past, it's gone. There is no future. When it comes, it won't be the future, it'll be now. So live in the here and now and enjoy being, not focusing on a future. And you know, invariably, when you get to whatever you thought was important, you can be just as happy with it or just as miserable you know, and you realize then that happiness is actually your choice, not something you wait for. And nothing on the outside will give it to you. It has to be coming from the inside. And for many people, it takes years of struggle to come to this. And sadly, some people never come to this. The idea that happiness is a choice, not something you wait for. But eventually you'll realize that it's not your environment that makes you happy. It's your perception of the environment. This is epigenetics. It's not your genes that tell you who you are. It's which genes are you turning on. And the genes themselves are not our controller. It's the environment that controls you. But the environment is no more real than what you think it is. So the way we perceive the world, that dictates what genes we express, what the manifestation is of our existence in our body as we experience it through the filters of our neurotransmitters and immunotransmitters. If you think the world is a scary and horrible place, you're more likely to enter a state of flight or fight, and the dominant emotions of the flight or fight response are fear, anger, aggression, lack of safety, lack of trust. If your body is in a state which you're holding tension, making your heart race, then you're going to be in a state of flight or fight. But if your body can be relaxed and peaceful, you're more likely to enter a state of parasympathetic dominance. But the way you interpret the world is going to affect that. So if you're a person who's always cautious, always not sure when you meet a new person because maybe they're not really reputable, then you're more likely to be in flight or fight. You know, in law, they say a person is innocent until proven guilty. So most of the time, we should give people the benefit of the doubt, but most people don't. Most people don't trust an environment until it's proven safe, don't trust a new person until they prove themselves to be honest. Whereas actually, if you assume that everything's good, unless it's proven not to be good, your nervous system works better. You're more likely to be peaceful, calm, receptive. Your nervous system in parasympathetic dominance will be able to then enhance the function of immune, digestive, reproductive functions. Your perceptions on a subconscious level, your cellular level will be saying peace, love, safety, trust. You're more likely to be happy with the outcome of your actions if you're living in trust, as opposed to living in fear. So in the end, you recognize that it's not your environment that actually makes a difference. You might end up, you know, being in a body that's super flexible and strong. But if you're living in fear, you're still miserable. What we want in the end is to recognize that how we feel is how we choose to feel. And so in the easiest way of doing this is by living in a body which is pain-free, functional, energized, but relaxed. But the way most people practice to look for strength, flexibility, fitness, and working hard, they end up in a tense body which is overstretching, overtensing, overbreathing, often overthinking, struggling for the future. But like you were talking about nature, nature doesn't work with survival of the fittest. That's what people think. Nature works with cooperation, symbiosis, love, connection. So I want all of my cells to send good energy and loving information amongst them. This to me is yama and niyama inside my body. And if I share good energy and loving information inside myself, I connect better with the world. And so I'm trying to make it so that my body feels good. When my body feels good, it's much easier to enjoy my life. And so my philosophy is enjoy your life. It's a choice. Look after your body. It's the only one you've got. Use that to help other people enjoy their lives and look after their bodies. And then as a byproduct of daily practice, maybe you get strong and flexible, but it's not my aim. But I find that regular healthy practice does make you reasonably healthy and strong. But it's not my aim. It's a byproduct. I think maybe that reflects something of what you were saying. Thank you.
Yeah. Something exciting you showed on one of the days. You called me and you asked me to put that 2 fingers in your throat. here. And I have to admit, you almost broke my fingers. The power was the strength that you pushed out from that very soft tissue. It was tremendous. Yeah, it's like a wave. And this to do with CD, right? Those CD, those supernatural abilities. The yoga listed several. In Dharma as well, there's lots of listed incredible things. Have you touched any, or how do you think those are appearing? Is this some kind of also natural things that develops when you're not attached to this, or is it you have to work on them? Because I know some of your teachers could take the tremendous weight on their belly and some other tricks.
So that's actually lovely what you said. It was lovely to do that with you. We were putting fingers in the throat when I said to people in the beginning, push your fingers in your throat. I forgot to tell you it doesn't feel nice. Okay, tighten the muscles in your throat, then push. There are no muscles, so it still doesn't feel nice. So then when you touched me, what I did was breathe into my throat. And most people think that breathing is actually something you should be doing more of. But the three things I teach about breathing is that, number one, the less you breathe, the healthier it is. Like a person who's asleep, they don't breathe much. A person who's sick breathes a lot. A person who's fit, runs fast, hardly breathes at all. A person who's weak and stiff and unfit breathes a lot to do a little. So actually breathing less is an essence of breathing. The other thing is that you want to maximize the use and control of your muscles of breathing, which include your spine, not just your diaphragm, but also the rib cage and abdomen. But at the base of all breathing has to be natural breathing. Many people think that pranayama is about breathe more, but often when people do pranayama, they're over-tensing and over-breathing. So I believe before you learn pranayama, which in one way could be approaching the siddhis, because in the sutras of Patanjali that you were alluding to, is in the second chapter, it starts talking about yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. And at the end of the discourse on pranayama, it says, once you have sthira sukham asanam and your asana is firm but calm, and you can make it effortless, which might take up to 3 hours of doing the same activity in a meditative way, and then all duality shall cease. Now you are ready for pranayama, it says. So up until then, what are you doing? Not breathing. No, of course. Up until then, you're breathing naturally. So the base level of pranayama is natural breathing, which is inhale low, exhale relaxed, you breathe through your nose, there's not much of it, and you can forget about it, it runs by itself. So then what is pranayama? It's type of a supernatural breathing. And so then when we're talking about pranayama, it says pranayama has three things: breathe in, breathe out, don't breathe. But it says, wait, there's a bit more, you have to work out where to breathe, how long to breathe for. Then it says, but wait, there's a fourth, and you go, fourth what? And it says, well, actually it's not just breathe in, breathe out, don't breathe. It's don't breathe consciously, but sometimes you don't breathe unconsciously. And they call it kevala kumbhaka. And then when the kevala kumbhaka happens, and you suddenly stop breathing without realizing, so this means now you're ready for true dhyana, dharana, meditation, samadhi. Then transitions to the third chapter. And the third chapter, it starts talking about these higher levels, the last stages of the Ashtanga Yoga tree. And that's where it starts talking about the supernatural powers. And it says that when you start getting to these levels, don't be distracted, but we might start having siddhis, superpowers. Like the ability to be extra strong, or be big or small or invisible. And so it says, be careful, don't get distracted by them. And so I've had amazing teachers who, like you were saying, not only can I put some pressure out of my throat, it's not that special. Maybe you said it would break your fingers, but I'm sure your fingers are stronger than my throat. But my teachers, from India, from China, they could put metal spears in their throat and still bend the metal, thick metal that you can't bend over your leg. And one of my Indian teachers could put a metal bar on his eyeball and bend metal with pressure in his eye from his breath. And so what I say to people mostly is, don't even try pranayama. It's too difficult, because what you've got to learn first is recognize that we are normal people living a very unnatural life. And before you even consider trying to do these supernatural things, recognize we are normal people living an unnatural life. Go back to natural. And then once you have established natural breathing, re-established what we used to have as children, what most people only get close to in their deepest, most regenerative cycle, sleep, then eventually you can use that and start to make it supernatural breathing. So what I was doing was breathing into my throat, but not just my throat. It was starting with the diaphragmatic natural breathing and then moving into my throat. So the siddhi powers are there. You can consider them as supernatural powers, but they come when you get rid of the limitations of our normal dysfunctional life and you go back to the natural state that children have. I don't need to be supernatural. I'd be happy if I just got to the level of a child. The ability to move freely through life and be happy most of the time in their default natural function. I don't need to have supernatural powers. But yes, they do start coming a little bit. People tell me I have a lot of energy, but you know, I don't aspire that. It just happens by itself. So I think that if we just return to natural, that's a good start.
With this do less, breathe less, how do we deepen the practice? So there's a time where most sages of our time, they would retreat and they would take their practice to certain depth, right? Retreat, to intensify it to certain aspect, or is it either done by continuous work? It could be a slow work. With your approach, how would you suggest moving to?
I recommend that if your aim is to deepen your practice, you have to think about what's the aim of the practice. And my aim is to have a better life, to help the world be a better place. So I practice in a way which gives me the most benefits physically, physiologically, mentally, socially, environmentally. I practice with the idea that I want to live in the present moment, but I also have the rest of my life to consider. So I practice in 5 temporal zones. I want to make the practice good while I'm doing it, have a good effect immediately after, over the next few days, months, weeks, in the short-term future, the medium-term future of the next months and years, but also the long-term future of next 20, 30, 40 years. So I found out that the most important way to get balance on all these levels is to make the aim of the practice to move good energy and loving information through a pain-free functional body, which on a physiological level is to encourage blood flow without the heart racing, to encourage a more parasympathetic dominant, more relaxed state. And this gives me energy while being relaxed, but to do it, I need to also move my body a little bit, keep every joint, because what's that expression? If you don't use it, you lose it. So I make sure that every day I move every one of my joints in a pain-free, functional way. And I try and do it in a meditative way. And when I'm doing these practices then, the aim of my practice is to move good energy and loving information in a meditative way by moving. And then I have to think, if that's the aim, I stop blocking that. So I do it with less tension, less stretch, less breathing, less thinking, because those things block energy and information. And then to encourage the flow of good energy and information, I move into each of my postures initially actively using my own muscles rather than just collapsing into poses or pulling one limb against another. That can be done, but initially I'll move actively and I'll move from my core, not lock my core. And so then eventually the core becomes the important part of the practice, connecting thinking brain with gut brain. And to do this I also have to breathe from my core, which is the seat of pranayama. And to do it in a fluid, gentle, flowing way makes a difference. So that's my practice. And when I do that, I progress, and that's what I teach.
What brought me here is this one teaching I took away from very thick book. There was Yoga Vasishtha, and only thing I remember is this: invest in a company of wise people. And when I have opportunity, I always try to, when I heard that you are in UK, so I thought this is a wonderful opportunity to come and see such a person like you, like your caliber. And it's been incredible to get to know you, very insightful in many aspects, so I hope to share it with the others as well who come to our retreat. We have a good community in Oxfordshire, and I hope you can come one day in a beautiful space that we have created there and the nature have created there. So thank you for sharing all your incredible knowledge, and keep going. Thank you for all the choices you made in your life to keep you on the path, and keep up sharing it with as many as you can.
What you said resonates with me. I think it's important we spend the time with wise people. But what I realized was that everyone is my teacher, and there's always wisdom in everyone. So I learn from everyone. I've learned a lot by being with you. I learn a lot from all the people in the classes we've been doing. And in fact, you can learn from everyone, and to be open and receptive to the wisdom that's all around us is important. So I believe, connect, share good energy and loving information, receive what you can, share it, look after it, be receptive to everything. I say, make a choice to enjoy your life. Look after your body, it's the only one you've got, and then use that to help other people enjoy their lives. Thank you very, very much.